can begin again with the taking of refuge as before, generating bodhicitta. Holding the presence of all the enlightened ones, space in front, vividly holding the presence of sentient beings, all those beings in all various kinds of circumstances. Holding the image of Chenrezig in our minds as the embodiment of all sources of refuge. The image may be clear, one face and forearms, crossed legs, silks, all the ornaments. Mala in the right hand, lotus in the left, wish-fulfilling jewel with the heart. Whether it's clear or not, this radiant display is just appearance of mind. Clear appearance, hazy appearance. Still within this is the profound potential. Feeling the radiant display of loving kindness and compassion. If you have it memorized or just feel the desire to read, you can read along. Page 11. Don't feel any pressure to do so. Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings. Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings. Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings. For a second, make sure that you bring the image vividly back, at least for kind of a flash, and let it dissolve into the space of mind. Bring to mind all sentient beings filling space, crown of yourself and all beings. It's the 8-petaled lotus with the moon seat. Above that, seed syllable free embodiment, all the qualities of all the enlightened ones.
Light radiates, filling space, touching all the enlightened ones. Their blessings return in the form of rays of intense light, striking the tree, this ball of light. Light again radiates, filling space, touching beings, dissolving all the karmic tendencies and hindrances. Tree appears instantly as Chenrezig. Can read. On the crown of myself and sentient beings, pervasive as space, is a lotus and moon seat. From the free appears the noble Chenrezig, clear, white, and radiating five-colored light. Smiling and gazing with compassionate eyes, the first pair of his four hands are joined together. The lower two hold a crystal mala and a white lotus. Adorned with jewels and silk, he wears a deerskin upper garment. His head ornament is Amitabha, and his two legs sit in the Vajra asana. A stainless moon supports his back. He is the embodiment of all sources of refuge. Vividly holding this, the radiance of Chenrezig on the crown of our head and the crown of the head of all sentient beings. Radiance filling space. We offer praise and appreciation for these qualities. Noble One, untainted by the mire, your form is luminous white. A perfect awakened one adorns your head. With eyes of compassion, you gaze upon beings. To Chenrezig we bow. Noble One, untainted by the mire, your form is luminous white. A perfect awakened one adorns your head. With eyes of compassion, you gaze upon beings. To Chenrezig we bow. Noble One, untainted by the mire, your form is luminous white. A perfect awakened one adorns your head. With the eyes of compassion you gaze upon beings. To Chenrezig we bow. If you wish to read along, it's on page 31. When we offer praises and connect with the enlightened ones in that way, it's a dynamic situation. The strength and impact of our aspirations is reciprocated. The openness is reciprocated with expression of intense loving kindness and compassion. Our openness is at heart the wish that we be able to recognize these qualities that we appreciate in ourselves. And thus, as it's described in the next section, by praying one pointedly in this manner, light radiates from the body of the Noble One and purifies impure karma, appearance, and deluded mind. The outer environment becomes the realm of Dewa Chen. The body, speech, and mind of the inhabitants become the exalted body, speech, and mind of the powerful Chenrezig.
Appearance, sound, and awareness are inseparable with emptiness. Then for some time we'll recite the mantra and let the mind play over the elements of the form, ourself as Chenrezig, and I'll offer a few points of guidance along the way. If you wish, you can refer to your picture, if that's helpful at times. Om Mani Padme, 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 Om You can continue reciting. Looking at the visualization as you recite, you can allow the mind to go through all the elements, gently letting the mind rest for a moment on the face. Gentle gaze and gentle smile. Your crown with 5 jewels.
Left hand is the lotus. And the right is the mala, the rosary. The center two hands holding the wish-fulfilling jewel. Legs crossed in full lotus. Red silk robe. The other silks as you recall them. Deer skin over the shoulder, left shoulder. Holding the overall presence and the radiance, filling space. All other beings in the form of Chenrezig, clouds of Chenrezig surrounding, filling space. In the heart setter, there's the seat syllable, the Shri, or just a brilliant ball of light. You can allow the mind to rest in the inner space, the form of Chenrezig, settling into the very Shri itself, into the ball of light. All the beings as Chenrezig dissolve into brilliant clouds of light streaming into the Guru Chenrezig that's on the crown of our head. Chenrezig dissolves into our form, brilliant light. Our form dissolves the outside in, the top down, the bottom up, dissolving into the free, the heart, silhouette with a ball of light, brilliant. Gets smaller and smaller, staying brilliant as it disappears. And arising from that, regard your ordinary form as the play of the mind. Your experience is just the radiant play of the mind. Any thoughts that arise are the radiant play of the mind. There's no need to improve anything. Then reading. The apparitional bodies of myself are the body of the Noble One. Sounds are the melody of the 6 syllables. Thought and memory are waves of great intrinsic awareness. By this virtue may I accomplish the state of powerful Chenrezig and establish all beings without exception on that level. So now I promise some time for some questions. Since we have people with kind of a wide variation in experience, we should have questions from all over the map. I hope that I have given enough for people who are beginning to get a toehold in some sense of the practice, and not been merely repetitive, giving the others the chance to watch the union of irritation and emptiness arise in the mind. So, questions? Doug? Yeah.
I have a couple of questions about the chant, just technical questions. The pronunciation, it's written differently in different places, and this one says Padme Hung as opposed to Padme Hum. Is there a preferred pronunciation?
The preference you will find according to the people doing the preferring. The origin, the best we can do to approximate from our own English-biased approximation is of the Sanskrit would be Om Mani Padme Hum. The Tibetans, given the structure of the alphabet and the similarities and differences between that and the Sanskrit alphabet, Pada is not Pad but Pe. So you have Om Mani Padme, and they have hung generally instead of hum. The little thing on the top of the ha in the hum is an sound. They have gone to hung. Recently, His Holiness Karmapa suggested that perhaps it was better to approximate the Sanskrit more than approximate. We're still approximating something, but to approximate the Tibetan approximation of the Sanskrit seemed a bit indirect, so he suggested just try to approximate the Sanskrit in this. So that's where I lean. I had to spend 2 weeks on one retreat unlearning some rather long mantras that I had become very proud of my capacity to recite quickly with the Tibetan inflection. But Om Mani Padme Hum, I'll throw down on that side. But great beings have attained enlightenment reciting it in a variety of ways.
Okay.
Always keep that in mind.
Okay, just if I may, one quick
Sure.
follow-up question. I notice that this chant is said very, very quickly. Oh, I'm sorry. Very, very quickly. And I guess people are counting. I'm just not familiar. So is quickness something which is sought after? And would it be incorrect to say this chant more slowly like other chants?
It's fine to recite it more slowly. The one of the very long time-honored descriptions is that when we're reciting, we're hearing not only our own speech, but as though the environment is resounding with the sound of the mantra and sounding like the kind of the hum of bees. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. So it's not a race, but it's also not kind of a thing to get kind of really sort of an aesthetic experience of that's not like an intention to go there. But sometimes doing it slowly, it's sometimes a little more quickly. Kind of the humming of bees, just that kind of. It's like a resonance. It's a resonance. Do you have something to add, Dora?
Just that the Tibetans do a lot of counting, and so we get sort of an inadvertent pressure. Sorry, I could use that one. We get sort of an inadvertent pressure to go faster because we might be given a practice suggestion of reciting 100,000, and so our natural tendency is to, increase the speed. So that's not necessarily virtuous, but it's just something that's there. But so I think we develop kind of over time, we sort of develop something that is kind of not self-conscious, or it just kind of becomes a natural way that we do it, and it doesn't mean that someone else should do it that way, and it doesn't mean that we'll be doing it that way forever, but I think it's sort of there's not a total ideal that we're striving for.
In a group, we should be avoid judgment of how others are reciting, and though it may seem obvious, not recite in a way that is instructive to others about how they ought to recite. Om Mani Padme Hum. There are all kinds of dimensions. Every aspect of our being gets wrapped up in this, and then we can see these kinds of things. Particularly practice in a group, we start to see all kinds of things that we do, and others do, and so then part of the practice is to let go of our our preferences. John.
So I have a question on the mala and the mantra. So back to the mala question. The mala question is we use left hand in in Chenrezig's right hand. So is that its intention to be set ourselves somewhat different than when we're in the body of Chenrezig? Which hand do we hold the mala? Right. Okay. So.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
Just like that. We recite like this, and we visualize like that. Right?
Okay. I love these conundrums.
Well, it's just it's another thing to kind of let go of. I mean, there are all kinds of things about it that we have to kind of let go of. Having a tidy narrative, and there's a narrative in certain ways, but it's also things to let go of. There's also just the general perspective that we invoke. We see the mala in the right hand and the lotus in the left, and we're used to thinking, to see the mala, I need to look that way. Lotus. But you can just abandon the notion that you need to have a particular perspective, and you can actually just engage in just holding both at the same time. There are different ways in which you can engage the practice so that you let go of kind of being stuck in the ways that we're stuck. When we do something like that, we discover, oh, it's not so comfortable to open the mind that way at first. We think we need to look one way, then we need to have a perspective. So.
One side note is that with a lot of Yidam practices, we can be encouraged to imagine ourselves going around in our day as in the form of the Yidam, and that often will be a two-armed form, and with some, I think with Chenrezig, it would be then you actually can imagine the mala in the left hand sometimes, and so that's sort of a gesture towards sort of you're kind of halfway between what your ordinary body is doing, and but still, trying to carry the image of the deity. So.
Okay, and the second question is the Hri is always implied, never stated. It's not part of the mantra, but it's on the page as part of the mantra. It's drawn when we did the little coloring exercises. The Hri's at the end there.
Yes.
So where does the Hri? Is it a mental Hri or it's not a verbal Hri?
No.
Hri.
Just put this back about 5 inches. That's where the Hri is. If you want to, when we get into the practice further, there are a few more dimensions to the visualization. I didn't want to say, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing. But in the heart, there is a 6-petal lotus, and part of your packet is this diagram, but all flattened out. But since we, in the olden days, spent a really, really long time trying to translate, figure out what our Tibetan teachers were saying about how these syllables of the mantra were arranged, I finally broke down and made a visual aid and said, is this it? Yes, that's it. So if we want to, the mantra is at the heart, and at the center of the lotus there's a Hri, and then the mantra is arranged clockwise, facing in. That's why you don't see it, except I should show you. Om Mani Padme Hum. So you can see from this that, if you're not used to imagining something like this, particularly not used to imagining anything in the middle of your body,
but not imagining something like this, it takes some energy. And that's part of this type of practice, is that the stabilization of the mind, it's very much a calm abiding practice from that perspective. But we engage in, we use objects of meditation that are more complex than ordinary calm abiding, which can provide more of an engaging anchor, just as the way our ordinary life is very engaging, because we have so many pieces of our experience that we're stitching together in a fast and furious way all the time in order to maintain our sense of reality. We think this is a lot of work, but it's nothing compared to the work that we do to carry our ordinary sense of samsara around. That's a remarkable effort. Somebody once asked about, it was kind of a off-the-wall question I thought at the time about, well, couldn't all this energy and everything, couldn't it be used for black magic? And it took me a while to think, like our ordinary life, that's already the black magic show. It's our sense of reality that's governed by the kleshas in our ignorance is yet extremely believable, and we do our best to convince each other of its reality. So there we have the black magic show. The rest of it is, it's not really a question so much. Stan.
I wonder if you could say some more about seeing as you're going about your day, seeing your life and your body and so forth as the play of the mind. In particular, when something intense is going on, like maybe you have a stomach cramp or something like that. It's like, this is the play of the mind? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Can't you go play somewhere else? Yeah, well, that's it. And if we really contemplate the lotus emerging right in the midst of that and not being trapped by it, that's kind of the guiding metaphor. But then how do we actually do that? There is more of an answer than just good luck. There's more of an answer. And you can, I think it's necessary to approach it both from the side of our practices of calm abiding and insight, but there's also methods specifically within the Vajrayana. That kind of, we could put that into the category of purification in a certain way. Not the stomach cramp itself. Some people would say that, but that's kind of a different deal. But if the stomach cramp is going to be purification, it has to be in relationship to our relationship to that. It's our relationship to it that is the thing. That's the place where we're trapped. And it helps to begin with some things that are simpler that arise in the mind, that we think life would be better if I didn't feel this way. And if we look carefully, there's actually a continuous kind of background static that's like that. This isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. Or however it manifests, it can manifest as kind of I like Trungpa Rinpoche's term, primordial anxiety, I think. Kind of I've forgotten if that's, but it's something, there are these little nagging things all the time that make us want to look elsewhere. Couldn't be this, must be something else. But those are actually the opportunity to turn the attention directly into that experience
and particularly into the resistance to the experience, into the conclusion that real well-being is somewhere else. And this is something that requires a stability of mind, very strong stability of mind, so that we can actually relax enough to turn the attention back to the exact thing that says, don't look at me, look elsewhere. So it really is, it's almost like, it's saying, look over there, and you go, who wants me to look over there? So it's like, it's turning straight back into that and relaxing directly into that. Look somewhere else. It's not here now. So that kind of move, which is easy to explain in calm abiding, but hard to do, that requires becoming familiar with the movement of mind, the play of the mind, and then being able to turn back directly into that and relax directly into that experience. Then we see something that actually allows for not being trapped. It's possible to see something within that. Then to go back around to Yidam practice, which is the topic of the day, then I'm so glad you asked this, because I have a nice quotation from Jamgon Control, in Creation and Completion. There's a little section on purification, which is in that case oriented more towards emotional states, reactive states arising. But the same can be true because part of the experience of something being unpleasant, the thing that's entrapping is the reactive state that goes along with it. And so Jamgon Control Rinpoche, he quotes some teachers saying, you can use kind of all methods of, you could say the three yanas or the three turnings, and particularly with an emotional state that's harmful, you can resolve that actually I don't want to feed this emotional state. I don't want to be trapped in it. So you resolve that. It's a basic kind of renunciation of being trapped by it. The same is true with our reaction to physical pain or discomfort. I resolve, I do not wish to be trapped by it. When I'm trapped by it, I am not able to really be a benefit to myself or to others. This is not a kind of a moral statement that I shouldn't be trapped, but that I do not want to continue to feed that. So that's kind of at the level of renunciation. At the level of transformation, taking more of a Mahayana perspective, then to be able to bring to mind all sentient beings and all those who are going through this similar kind of experience right now, and to hold that as part of your experience. And then to wish that the experience that I have, by my experiencing it, may others be relieved of it. So it becomes a basis for mind training. It's very much in the Tonglen. And with the within Yidam practice, within deity practice, then if we have practiced enough and we have some real stability with the sense of the physical form of the deity, the experience of that, then we attend to that. We tend to that as the play of the mind. And then the quote, here it's using desire as the example, but Pray sincerely again and again for the blessing that the thoughts of desire that occur in your mind arise as the pristine wisdom of discernment. Then look directly at your own mind as the inseparability of the deity, the guru, and the emotion. The meditation should be maintained from the time the emotion arises just until it is resolved. So within this, I was looking into this a little bit this week and looking into the notion of, particularly with the uncomfortable physical sensations, which I occasionally experience, that and this also depends upon having done a fair amount of the 4 foundations of mindfulness to be able to look, but to look and see to see the yidam's body, or the experience of the yidam within the sensation. So it becomes the play of the Guru's mind, the play of the Buddha's mind. But the exercise that I suggested about see what the experience of the space inside the sensation, that can loosen things up so that you can begin to look in other ways. But those kinds of things, those are the kinds of things that are suggested. I was going to actually try an exercise like this, but it requires too much explanation. So you would have all been going, "Oh my goodness." So, but that's the perspective on using you could say the 3 turnings or the 3 yanas, and if we then have arisen from the practice, and we are recognizing our form as the play of the mind, and speech as a mantra, and thought and memory as waves of great intrinsic awareness, then we just recognize directly the nature of the experience that arising. Simple. Well, it is, but getting there is not. Getting there takes all the effort that you well know about the foundational practices and really clearing things out so that we can actually commit ourselves to investigating deeply so that we can actually contact this, actually do it. So that's my best for today.
That's very good. That's a very good best for today. I mean, that was really kind of interesting what you said about, I'm not sure if I can say it again, but how you see this thought that you've turned around. You actually see the body of the yidam in it?
Yes, you can.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have enough years left, but I can aspire to that for sure.
Well, do it more simply then. Do it just do it from the point of view of just how you direct your mind. That it could be more difficult. Sometimes that's one of the things about yidam practices, that there are elaborate and very simple yidam practices. And when it gets down to the simple, it reminds me, it's so simple, and we're back at, well, just do Mahamudra, or just do Dzogchen. And then that's like the kids' game where we used to be cowboys and pretend we could draw our 6-shooters real fast. We'd stand there like this and we go, "I'm really fast. You want to see me do it again?" So but it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, just do this. But when we say, okay, well, let's just try it, then it requires a real simplicity, just a kind of a simple-mindedness about it, and then no desire to sustain. You can't. That will you will have drawn and shot your toe in that move. And we will do that. We'll do it over and over again until we actually kind of notice the twitch to want to nail that thing, put it in a can, keep it, because none of it stays like that. So being very, very simple about it. One of the things in the dissolution, might as well talk about it now, is the dissolution. When we do that, there isn't anything to be done. It also is a place where we drop any effort to do anything more, to do anything with it. We don't. It's not like, okay, well, I finished that part of the practice. Now let me see, I'll scratch my head and arrange things a little bit. Now I'll do some calm abiding. I guess that's what we're doing because everybody's quiet now. The dissolution, the practice there is just actually that instant of dissolution, watching that instant. If it falls apart, it doesn't matter. And when we're practicing on our own, it's actually good to do the dissolution over and over again, right? So that we're not snared by the impulse to want to have something, kind of make it into something. So that moment of dissolution is a moment where we can have that similar kind of simplicity.
I feel like a bridge to that simplicity that you're talking about is can be that first foundation of mindfulness, that mindfulness of the body. I have the experience that there's so much, like when you led that, and I remembered, oh yeah, I really love that practice. Wish I did it sometimes. It really reminded me that there's so much going on when I attend to physical sensations. There's so much there that it really takes my attention, and my mind, my sort of the sixth consciousness and the sort of blah, 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 seems to be really quieted by, through that captivation with all the physical sensations. And I feel like that quiet then is what allows the simplicity, because the moment we start thinking, but now I should have 4 arms, and then it's this spinning out into concept, which I think gets in the way of that directness. So to me, that's feels like a helpful, something that, anyway, it's a helpful practice to supplement the Yidam practice.
Yeah. Another way to keep things simple to avoid that, oh, I should have this, or my visualization should be this way or that way, is to be careful about the pressure that we put on ourselves to get it right. And one of the ways, it's actually going back to the 4 foundations of mindfulness, is a way that I figured out to take some of the pressure off me. Just the experience of looking and noticing how little of my visual field I actually held clearly, and that the rest of it is like, if I really looked like this, the road crew could come in and change the whole set on the upper floor and just put things back in that sort of looked more or less like what was there, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, because it's really just kind of this vague thing, but I know exactly what it looks like because I've looked it up there before. So the memory. So when we're using visualization or the creative imagination of being, it's a mistake to think that we hold the whole thing with that kind of, in the conceptual way of looking at one thing, another thing, kind of creating this giant catalog that we have to do all at once. And that it's possible to just allow the mind to open and a more panoramic possibility arises, but that doesn't arise, in the end, it doesn't arise by kind of a manic cataloging, making sure that everything's there. It happens more from just the process, like of just, you just look and you recall. And then and as the mind moves through the visualization, then the elements are clear. But that takes time. It takes time. Willow, yes.
I haven't received the empowerment for this practice, and I'm wondering what that means.
What an empowerment is?
Well, no, not what it means for me to practice without having received an empowerment for the practice.
What it means to practice without yet having it. Well, we could, different teachers in different places have different approaches, and in some places I would say you shouldn't do any Vajrayana practice without an empowerment first. That's just right. And it's worth understanding why somebody would go there and what that's about. It's mainly about, it's a bad idea to invent our own practice, because the only thing that we can invent is basically what we've already invented. So the empowerment is an opportunity to step outside of that, kind of at a very basic level. And so if one is actually very attracted to this kind of practice, and this practice in particular, it really is important at some point to receive an empowerment. And that's really an opportunity to kind of meet the practice, meet the bodhisattva kind of in a more direct way, something that goes beyond our ordinary sense of knowing things. But that the imprint that comes from being part of, it's not just taking the empowerment, really being part of, present for, and engaging at that time. The transmission and the imprint that's left there is something then that we can rely on. So it's, but here it's, we've had more the feeling that it's kind of a little deceptive. You say, oh, we can't tell you anything about this. Kind of, you have to take my seminar for X, next $1 million first, and then we'll tell you the real stuff. It's just, there's a bunch of dynamics in being that closed about it. And in particular with Chenrezig or Tara, the notion, if it boils down to it, is, oh, I'm going to identify 100% with compassion. You can get it wrong, but the chances of getting, what happens when you do that wrong is probably much less damaging than many other things that can happen. Kind of a bad job of compassion is kind of better than most people do. So, does that kind of clarify it? Trevor, and then
I guess just a kind of a quick question as a follow-up. So then with like the empowerment type of, sorry. Thank you. So I guess within, the Tibetan schools, is it the equivalent of basically Shaktipat in some of the Hindu schools for, again, some of their higher yogic exercises, that you kind of have, again, like kind of that energetic transmission, or is it somewhat different?
I guess I just don't want to go there to do a compare and contrast, because I think I would introduce some things and miss some things in the process. I think it's better to, it's not. I don't think it's helpful to kind of create an expectation ahead. I think, you know.
I had a question about the visualization when we carry Chenrezig on our head or in front.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were encouraging us at break to continue with that, I realize I tend to cradle inside in my chest, feeling like it's safer to walk around. And I'm thinking maybe that's not a good idea until the final dissolution of dissolving and merging. But I'm asking you, is that a bad idea? Or a misguided idea to carry inside?
Better to do the self-visualization. Better to do the self-visualization as opposed to do it inside, and to carry either above or in space. It's different. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's like kind of having somewhat misguided compassion, not so bad. But the opportunity that we have, there are two sides to this as Guru Yoga, and one side is the devotional side, and the other side is the union side. So, kind of as long as you're taking advantage of both opportunities, is good. But the formal basis for taking advantage of the opportunity is that the sense of devotion is that which we have yet to feel like it's really internalized.
That's clear.
Makiko?
I have a very beginner's question, which is the understanding of the page 31. Actually, I have two questions. First, here it said, by praying one pointedly in this manner. Is this referring to the page 15 or something about homage part?
It could, yes.
Okay. So the next question is, here, the light radiates from the body of the noble one and purified impure karma appearance and deluded mind. This part, I should imagine that each one of our, the top of our head, like my head, Saridra's head, Dora's head, there is Chenrezig, and then Chenrezig, can radiate the light to purify each one of our karma and deluded mind. That's how I should understand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, this is similar to if we try to look really tightly at each one all at the same time, sort of, then we'll feel like there are only so many onions I can carry in my arms, and they'll start to fall out. So any one that we look at, we should then sort of have confidence. Oh, just like that is it's happening all around. So any place that we look, it's like that. So we can kind of relax with it. And then the more we relax with it, the more it does become sort of a panoramic sense. And then any place we look, there's the detail, it's clear.
I see, so I don't need to go like this?
No. See, you don't need the clipboard and to go down and check off the names.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One more? So I'm just curious, but there's no description of the color. I think in the pictures that we've been given, there it's sort of a green halo or green disc behind the head. Up there, it's sort of a purplish. So I'm wondering, is that what does that represent? Is that conscious or sort of super conscious or enlightened mind or?
Dora?
Well, actually, I feel like they don't seem to include that in the standard teachings, and yet it's in all the tankas. And then there's also around the body, so it's around the head and around the body. And we always think, I don't know, in our commonly we think of it as sort of a, I hate to use the word aura, but maybe sort of like that, like the just the sense of radiance coming from the body. And
what's not shown there that shows in some of the pictures is the moon. The moon. This is a general point that it's good to have, like of the images that you have at your disposal at the moment, only 1 out of 3 actually shows the moon directly. And it's good to rely on the descriptions and commentaries for the actual instruction for what to visualize. There are all kinds of reasons that Tanka painters do slightly this or slightly that, ranging from not knowing what the commentary says to finding it difficult to render white on white. So there are all kinds of reasons, but to rely on the commentary and then whatever image you're using as kind of a basis for inspiration to kind of allow the commentary information to inform that, to sort of supersede the details. One more.
Hi. Finally, rest in the very essence without conceiving of the 3 spheres. Can you, I know I've asked before, but can you remind me again the 3 spheres? Is it past, present, future?
And you're reading from?
Page 32, after
32.
the mantra.
Oh, yeah. It's the what are descriptively called the yikchung, the little letters. Yeah, the 3 spheres. It's variously rendered. The thing that I like best is perceiver, perceived, and perceiving. But often it's rendered as subject, object, and action. But I think perceiver, perceived, and perceiving is kind of brings all the possibilities more into kind of a closer to the ground of the thing that brings all the different examples, kind of unites them all.
I mean, just the when those are brought up at you, as I'm sure you probably know, it's the point is we're recognizing that ultimately those 3 are not separate, but our ordinary way of perceiving things is very much separates those 3, and so that's. It's raised in, almost always raised in that context, the idea of going beyond that or seeing through that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
maybe we'll rest for a moment. Now I'm going to be a little bit pushy and say rest in the very essence without conceiving of the three spheres. So we'll just rest a little bit and then take a break. So, but let's just rest for a moment.